All right, this video is going to be about the current state of the Cubs. So this is not going to delve into who I think they should sign as a free agent or any sort of trades or the farm system or anything like that. We're going to go with the major league roster of what we have now. So what the Cubs currently are working with, and basically if the season started tomorrow, what would we kind of run out there? And I'll give you a little bit of a player profile of how they did last season and talk a little bit about a couple prospects, but only ones that are on the 40-man roster. In the other videos, I plan to go more in depth about the starting rotation, the bullpen, or the farm system, or especially offseason stuff too. Like I really do want to talk about a lot of transactions, trades, and things like that, but that'll be a different video. This one's just kind of like the current state of the Cubs before they start all their offseason maneuvering and stuff like that. Also, I don't plan to put a lot of graphics or music, or not, it's not going to be a very high production value to start off with. This is going to be pretty much just content oriented, and maybe if I keep doing this and getting better at it, I will add some bells and whistles. But right now, all you're going to get is me recording myself in a screen and then talking. So let's start with. I'll kind of show you the kind of lineup I've made here. This is kind of a defensive lineup if it started today. I'm going to go briefly through them, and then I'll kind of go into detail on each position. Again, hopefully this is not if this was our opening day defensive lineup, we're in trouble. And that means that the Ricketts spent no money, which is pretty disappointing. But as of right now, it would look like Ian Happ would be in left field, Rafael Ortega would be in center, Jason Hayward in right, Patrick Wisdom at third, Nico Horner shortstop, Nick Madrigal at second base, Frank Schwindel at first base, and Wilson Contreras at catcher. So let's kind of delve into each position. Let's start with left field. If you look here at some of I'm going to use Baseball Reference. It's just pretty easy and straightforward. I do want to not get too wonky because I love baseball. I love the statistics. I love sabermetrics. I love advanced metrics. But I realize that's not everyone's cup of tea. So I'm going to kind of keep it light on the too wonky, nerdy baseball stuff. So there could be a wider range of people who can enjoy this. But I do plan to use some metrics. But if I use a metric, I'm going to try to explain it first so everyone's kind of on the same page. I'll keep it pretty simple this video. So if you look at Ian Happ's numbers, he had a very Ian Happ type season. He's a very streaky hitter. If you look at his numbers, they're pretty consistent. He'll crush it for a month or two, and then kind of be one of the worst hitters in the league for a month or two. That's just kind of how he rolls. He's getting to that point where he's not a young player anymore, where you're just gonna say, "Oh, he'll work through it." He was a first-round draft pick. He was, I think, the second draft pick ever, first-round draft pick made by Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer. So they have a lot invested in him. So it's worthwhile. This will probably be his last year to where he gets a qualifying offer and he just has a free ride to figure it out. I think this is the make or break year for Ian Happ. But if you look at his splits here, if you look at first half and second half, he was abysmal the first half, and then he picked it up once after the sell-off. Ian Happ did a lot better. If you look at his months, it's pretty stark. So I like to look at the metric OPS, which is on base plus slugging. It's a really good metric to just an overall offensive output from a player. It combines not only their slugging, but how do they get on base. And those are the two most valuable things, in my opinion. Well, not the most valuable, but it's the easiest all-inclusive stat that people understand that can be indicative of a player's value. So to give you a little bit of a background, 728 OPS is league average. So if you look at April, his OPS was terrible. It was 467, but then he really picked it up in May, did really well, and then had a terrible June and July, well well below league average on OPS, but then in August and September, he really did turn it up. He was above league average, so he was 856 OPS and over 1,000 in September and October. So there is some hope there. He played well in the second half, but then again, Ian Happ is Ian Happ. He's going to be really streaky. Okay, let's go back to. I'm never going to really go into too much detail on the backups, but Greg Diekman is somebody that we got at the deadline. We got him from the A's for Andrew or the sheriff. I forget his name now, but his name escapes me right now. But the relief pitcher that was on a one-year deal, he did really well. We flipped him to the A's for this outfield prospect. He's a really strong, he reminds me of what Tyler O'Neill of the Cardinals is. He's a really strong guy, gets on base, kind of like a fourth outfielder at this point, not like a stud prospect, but good value for a middle relief pitcher that we traded in July. Okay, now center field is where it gets really interesting. Rafael Ortega. The interesting thing about Ortega is he came up as well during the sell-off, and he was kind of like in AAA for a while. But the thing that I found most interesting about Rafael Ortega is his numbers are pretty decent. They're very league average, and if you look at his OPS, it's actually above league average. Remember, the league average was 728. So he's almost 100 points above league average. He plays really good defense. He's athletic, and he can steal some bases. But the one thing that alarms me here, if you look at his platoon splits means like how you hit against lefties or righties. Look at his drastic splits from righties and lefties. So he mashes righties. His OPS is 900, but look at his OPS against lefties. It's half of that, less than half, 421. His batting average is 128, gets on base 293, and only slugs 128. That means that he's not hitting for any power against lefties. So that's why I think he's a really good candidate. He still does have value. Why not platoon him? So maybe he can start in center field when there's a righty, but then you go sign a Jake Marisnik or someone who matches lefties to complement Ortega, and then you have a all-star production level center fielder, but you just platoon them and they both will be pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure that's what Jed Hoyer has in mind. I don't want to get into that too much because that will kind of undercut my other videos that I plan to do. The most fascinating thing about all this is right here, Brennan Davis. And again, I don't want to go into too many prospect talk, but his ETA to the majors is next year. You can see Brennan Davis, who's the Cubs' top prospect, coming up. He plays all three outfield positions. He is one of the most exciting prospects the Cubs have had for a long time. If we want to give a little, I do want to highlight him a little bit because I think he can really factor in on next season. There's obviously not a big book on him. He's only played, I think, to AA or maybe a little AAA. Actually, he's played AAA. He's got a lot. He's got 30-30 potential. So what I mean by that is 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. He's an athlete. He's 6'4", 210. He played basketball. He's in 2018. It says here he hit 305 and got a base at a 381 clip with 525 slugging. So that's well above league average. And if you can hit for power and be athletic, it'd be a really nice addition to our outfield. Also, next, so I'm really excited about him. I'll go in depth later with him, but now here's the sore spot. Sorry if you're a Jason Hayward lover. I'm not. He had a lot of intangible things, so his leadership and things like that, but I'm not really impressed with his bat. Never have been. Don't think they should have spent the money on him. Let's just look at, I know I'll talk about his game here in a minute and how he's kind of declined, but to be honest, my problem with Hayward is more to do with Theo and Jed giving him that much money with that many years rather than him as a person. So let's take a look at his contract, what he's been given. He's batted 214 last year, slugged only 347. His OPS was well above league average, and we are paying this man $22 million next year, and we still are on the hook for $22 more million in 2023. If you look at the life of the contract, we have paid him over $100 million to be essentially a fifth outfielder who doesn't deserve to be taking a bat away from some of the young Cubs in the system. I'm just not a big Jason Hayward guy anymore, and the biggest reason, and I know that he has a lot of appeal. He was on the World Series team. He was a leader in the clubhouse, things like that. But I'm more of a guy of looking at numbers and judging you on that rather than intangible things. I like to have tangible evidence on if someone has value for the team or not. The one thing that really a big misnomer again versus reality with Hayward is a lot of people will say, oh, but he's a great leader of the clubhouse and his defense. So that's what, people, I'm okay with Jason Hayward starting 150 games in the outfield and his defense he's a Gold Glove right fielder. Well, that's not really true anymore. He used to be. He really did. If you look at his metrics, they've really declined. He's not a Gold Glove outfielder anymore. And it's not like he's 40. He's only 32. He was a really young free agent. But I'm kind of off the Jason Hayward train, and that's kind of where I'm at on that. All right, let's go to the infield. Most of you know Patrick Wisdom. He came out of nowhere. He has been a lifelong kind of minor league player that would bounce around different organizations. We actually got him from the Cardinals, so thank goodness we don't have to deal with him on the other side. Patrick Wisdom is an interesting person. He seems to be pretty polarizing. People think that he's either a flash in the pan or people think that he's a legit MLB player and his numbers are not a fluke. Let's kind of dive into some of his numbers. Well, if you look, pretty good numbers. Low batting average, but he makes up for it with power. His slugging is .518, which is well above league average. His OPS is .823, again 100 points higher than league average. He gets on base good enough. He has a very limited number of at-bats here. He finally got an opportunity with the Cubs last year, and he did not waste any time impressing the Cubs. I will say a very, very interesting thing about Patrick Wisdom is his at-bat to home run ratio. He did not qualify. He didn't have enough at-bats because he didn't play the whole year to qualify for some of the Rookie of the Year awards and stuff like that, but he would have been top of the list had he qualified as far as at-bats. And also, I mean, how can you not love a guy? The stash, you get extra points for the stash there. But the thing I found interesting is he had a 10.04 average at-bats per home run. So every 10 at-bats, he's hitting a bomb, which is really, really, really elite in the league. The only people that had better ratios were all-stars. So Fernando Tatis Jr., Ohtani, Joey Votto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So that's the type of company he's in. I think he's definitely worth a flyer, especially if we're not going to try to win in 2022. Run him out there again for next season and let him make the adjustments he needs to make. The one thing that I think is of least highlighted, like no one really talks about his defense. David Ross has raved about his defense. He has one of the strongest throwing arms at third base in the league. I think his home runs and all that kind of will distract people from the fact that this is a legit defensive player as well. And actually, if you look at his numbers, they're better defensively than Bryant at third base. All right, so let's go on and look. This is where it gets really interesting. This is where the Cubs have decided to change the philosophies offensively. Nico Horner is a slasher. He is not a power guy. Think about the 2016 Cubs. How are they built? A bunch of beer league softball players like Kyle Schwarber, Bryant Rizzo. You had all these big boppers who got on base, hit for power. Maybe their average wasn't so great, pretty streaky. Jed Hoyer has made it really clear that there's a change in philosophy. They want more diversity in their lineup. They want the more Dexter Fowler types if you followed the Cubs in 2016. So I will talk about this for a minute. I think I am a little nervous about Jed Hoyer overcorrecting and getting a bunch of, because if you look at this lineup, it is very depleted from power. I mean, Nico Horner, let's dive into the numbers. I really like Nico Horner, but I'm saying he looks great in a lineup that has people around him. We can't have and I'll get into our second baseman in a minute. He's a very similar profile, and that's a little dangerous. Let's talk about Nico Horner. If you look, great batting average, great on base, very lackluster slugging. He's not someone who's going to hit the ball at the ballpark. In fact, he had 0 home runs and 149 at bats in his career. He only has 3 home runs total. Not a home run guy, and I don't think his profile is one with age his power is going to come. I don't think that's the game. Okay. The other thing is defensively, he is a Gold Glove second baseman. He is an average shortstop, so that's kind of a tough thing that I'm going to talk about now. Nick Madrigal is the second baseman who we got from the White Sox in the Craig Kimbrell deal. So I know that was hard to get rid of our favorite players, but they did yield some good prospects. Nick Madrigal is not even a prospect. He is a proven commodity. In fact, let's dive into some of his numbers. If you look, really nice average, 317 career average. Again, similar profile to Horner, almost too similar to where it scares me a little bit. Not a lot of slug, but he's going to get on base and he's going to do the small things like get runners over and plays very average defense at second base. His nickname with the White Sox was Nicky Two Strikes. I guess he just doesn't even strike out. And that's actually one thing that we can look here. If you look under the advanced batting metrics, his K rate is the lowest in the league. And that's not hyperbole. I'm saying, legitimately, he is the lowest K rate last year or 2 years ago in the league. His contact rate is off the charts. That's why he was drafted in the first round with the White Sox. Did really well. Great guy in the clubhouse, I guess. I'm really excited to see him play. My only thing is those are great assets to have in your lineup, but not with Ortega and Hayward and all these other people who don't have as much pop. Then we're going to have a lack of we overcorrected and we still don't have diversity in our lineup. It's going to be just the opposite problem. Instead of people who can hit a 3-run bomb, we're going to have to string 3 hits together to get 2 runs. So that's also can be dangerous. So I hope that they address that in the offseason and get some power bats to kind of protect and kind of complement Nico Horner and Nick Madrigal a little bit better. All right. And then Frank Schwindel, a really interesting story. Nobody knew who he was, kind of came out of nowhere. He, like Patrick Wisdom, kind of bounced around a bunch of organizations but never really stuck, but got a chance once Rizzo was traded. If you look at his numbers, really unreal numbers that he put up. And sorry to say this for those of you who love Anthony Rizzo, but he outperformed Anthony Rizzo in the second half by a lot. Look at these numbers. Small sample size, so you got to be careful, but he had OPS of 962. That's talking elite type OPS. Defense is very average. Rizzo's way better defensively, but I mean, you hit the cover off the ball. When you're slugging almost 600 and your OPS is 962, again, you're over 200 points from league average. He had a lot of value. Look at his WAR. His 1.7 WAR means wins above replacement. That means how many more wins were you than a replacement level player, like an average player. He was worth almost 2 full wins in a half season. That's a lot. So it's really promising. He is in the same camp as Patrick Wisdom for me. Let him go out there again and see if it's a fluke. I don't think it is either. He has nice bat to ball skills. For a slugger, he doesn't strike out as much, which I like. It's interesting to see what we have here. It's worth it to see in 2022 if it's more sustainable success. Okay, and then Wilson Contreras. We don't really need to talk about this too much. Everyone, if you are an avid Cubs fan, you know Wilson Contreras. He's the last remaining piece of the core, I would say. My only issue though with him too, there's 2 interesting things with him. Before the sell-off from like April to July 31st, he caught the most innings in the whole MLB. We had no backup options. We traded Victor Caratini, our very serviceable backup, in the Yu Darvish trade to the Padres, which ended up being a pretty big mistake because we could not find a backup catcher for the life of us, which forced Wilson Contreras to catch way too many innings. And as you guys know, a catcher can't just go out there, especially a day game after a night game, and continue to expect one of your star players to show up at the plate when he's catching that many innings. That's a really mismanagement by the front office to think that we could just go get a bunch of AAA backup catchers and have that work out. We had terrible production from the backup catcher spot. So look for that to be something that they address in the offseason, is going to get a veteran or trading for a dependable backup catcher. One other option that I'm a little hesitant with is Miguel Amaya. Miguel Amaya is actually a pretty solid prospect. He used to be a really top prospect, but he has kind of faded in the last couple of years. He also has some injuries, so you don't really know what you have there. And if we're trying to avoid what happened at the beginning of last year, the first half of last year, where Wilson is asked to catch that many innings, and especially too, if he's part of our long-term future, we do not want to be wearing him out and putting that kind of stress in that many innings. The catcher should not be catching that much. The only catcher that I've seen that has aged well and been able to catch that many innings is Yadier Molina, and no one understands how he's still getting it done at his age. It's not very typical for a catcher to be able to handle that many innings and then maintain their offensive production. And if you look, his offensive production did dip in the second half. Still pretty decent. He's still a all-star type catcher. He's a top 3 catcher in the league, in my opinion. The really interesting thing is, will we extend him? He's going to be a free agent after this year. So, and he's going to be on the wrong side of 30. So a lot of times you don't want to give a long. Look what happened with Jason Hayward. You get some people on the back end of their 20s and their early 30s, and it's been proven that they don't hold up as well as their age prime 25, 26, 27 seasons, which generally are the prime seasons for most hitters. It's where they figure out the league and they've made adjustments and they're young and they still have the same skill sets like speed. For pitchers, it would be velocity and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried to not ramble too much. Hope you found it valuable, some of the information. This is, again, hopefully not what we go into on on opening day, or that's pretty disappointing. That means that the rickets are really, really cheap. I think we will do some things, though, and I'll get to that in a different video. But I first want to say thanks for watching.